a boxing betting expert.
I know, David.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
He really gets into the nitty-gritty of this whole thing.
Hi, Sam. Thanks very much for joining me.
Not a problem, Dave. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be a good one. I've followed all your channels on Twitter, YouTube, and your podcasts. I know you can go pretty deep, so I'm excited to see where this takes us, and we'll get straight into it.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Nice one. Okay, so what is your first boxing memory? What's the first fight you remember?
Yeah, well, I'm 31 now, so 2007 was when I first got into boxing. So what's that, about 17 years ago? I was doing what most, I was 14 probably at the time. I was doing what most 14-year-olds do. Had the remote on in at the time. Sky Sports News was the big propaganda machine at the time. It's not quite the force that it once was now with all the digital avenues available, but back in the day that was the way to go for news. So for me it was Ricky Hatton was the main driver that got me into the sport. He fought Floyd Mayweather in and around that time, and that was a big. I'd actually, my uncle got married in Las Vegas about a couple of months before that fight actually took place. All the promotion was everywhere and all the rest of it, and I didn't know anything about boxing. I was always football growing up and all the rest of it. And I kind of watched that. I convinced my dad to buy the pay-per-view. My dad's not a boxing fan either. At 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, obviously heartbroken when Ricky got stopped.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when that happened, I kind of took a notice in the Manny Pacquiao fight that he had before he initially retired. And then before you know it, I was a Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao fan because I watched them fight, and then it just kind of rippled from there, really.
So were you in Vegas for that build-up then?
I was there like a couple of months before the fight happened, but it was all over the billboards and everything like that.
So that was number one, Hatton
Mayweather, yeah.
Yeah. So tough one because his first defeat
was,
and you were a big fan.
Yeah, and then it wasn't quite as heartbreaking as the Manny Pacquiao fight because he was laid unconscious for that one, unfortunately. But yeah, look, obviously I wanted Ricky Hatton to win really badly, the Brit and all the rest of it. Yeah. But look, I became a massive fan of Floyd's in-ring accomplishments after that, shall we say?
Yeah, nice. And so, did you ever get out to Vegas for any of the fights?
I've been to Vegas a few times, but I've never been to a fight in Vegas. That's on the bucket list. Haven't done that just yet, but most definitely will. Yeah. The last time I was there was I always get unfortunate. I've never been for the fights, but Andre Ward against Kovalev was, I think it was the fought twice, didn't I? I think it was the first fight, and I was there like a week before that was happening. Right. I've just fell unlucky on both the times I've gone. But
nice. And have you been to many fights in the UK?
I went to university in Liverpool, and I used to go to Auckland. Again, this was sort of 10, 11 years ago now, but I went to Tony Bellew against Nathan Cleverly, the rematch. But Joshua was on that card, George Groves, James DeGale, Callum Smith. It was a really, they were all A-sided loaded fights. So, they weren't in like 50-50s or anything like that. But I've been to about 7 or 8 shows at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, but I haven't been to many shows since that. Maybe 1 or 2 here or there. I live in Northern Ireland now, so I'm hoping to get over to Lewis Crocker against Paddy Donovan. I'm hoping for that to be announced soon. I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, I tend not to go too much, David, to be honest with you, because I cover them on YouTube, and I'm happy enough to get away out of the hustle and bustle from it, to be honest with you.
So what will dictate you doing a watch along then? Does it have to be like a very high profile fight?
Yeah, it's a good question. Not necessarily, to be honest with you, because sometimes we'll get more traction in, say, a Channel 5 fight night, or mostly the UK ones is our audience, so we'll do better numbers there. But I'm a fan of the sport where I get up in the middle of the night and watch the US fights in any case. So more or less, I guess what I've got on, more to the fight. If I'm here and I'm watching the fight, I'd rather watch it on mute and have a chat with the lads and score it ourselves. That's my idea of sometimes I will unfortunately have to miss a fight, or life gets in the way, doesn't it? But yeah, it's not necessarily like how big the fight is. It's more just my actual personal schedule.
Yeah, makes sense. So I really enjoy, I think you've got two approaches to certainly your video output. You do a very punchy, sometimes 1 minute preview, which is brilliant. I go to yours every week. I'm like, right, what's Sam got on this one? And then you have guests on you and you do a deeper dive. And that's also interesting to get the different opinions and the back and forth. Amongst sort of social media on boxing, there's a big thing where people say you can't be a good assessor of the sport unless you've done it yourself, unless you've got in that ring. Now, I know countless people who proved that argument wrong. I don't know. Have you ever boxed?
Look, I've been in gyms, but I've never had a amateur fight, or and I've never really technically sparred, if you want to call it that. Yeah, I put the gloves on in the back garden with the boys when I was growing up, as everyone has. But no, I've never officially boxed in any capacity whatsoever. No.
And you've I've seen you've had some like coaches on your channel and you interviewed people. Do you think that do you think that having that hands-on experience necessarily makes you a better assessor of the fights?
Yeah. No, what I found when I've interviewed fighters and coaches, it was a direction I really pushed my channel in at first. I really wanted to go down that route, but I've seen better growth and more interest from when, say, me and the guys have done the podcast, or say the little punchy videos, like you've said. It doesn't warrant the extra effort for me that goes in to try and nail somebody down for it. And I know these guys are busy; they're training, they're fighting, So I do want to take the channel in that direction at some point, but I feel like maybe doing that in person is easier to do than trying to nail people down. But sorry, Dave, I've gone completely off piece there for the for the original quote. What was the question again?
Just whether you like how you go about sort of assessing fights as without that hands-on experience.
So you look, for me, I've never really, I guess the way that I've interviewed the fighters or the coaches, that they might think I have that experience, because I always initially open up, or I make sure that they know that I know exactly what's going on with, I'll do my research, or sometimes I don't have to, but sometimes I do. And I'll just let them know very early on in the conversation that, I know exactly everything here. So it leaves nothing to question, really. And yeah, I'm not a believer at all in that, in that theory, not just because it applies to me, but it's different in boxing. Obviously, I follow all sports, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners do as well. It's everyone gives their opinion on football, and no one cares about it, or whatever other sports people follow, golf or. But in boxing, it's a really fickle subject line. If you've not boxed, you're not allowed to give an opinion. But yeah, everyone's allowed to give opinion on he didn't play well yesterday for Man United. That's
you can be an armchair expert in football.
Yeah.
You can't do 3 keepy uppies.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so Ricky Hatton was like the main guy that got you into. Since then, who's been your favorite boxer to watch since you've been following the sport? And also, like, in the archives, if you look back before then? So 2 questions.
Yeah, definitely. From Ricky Hatton onwards, always was a big fan of Anthony Crolla.
Oh, wow.
Love watching him fight. Love his story. Just a really good, straight up guy. I've met him a couple of times over the years. Tommy Coyle was another one, a guy from Hull, domestic fighter, really, really just in wars every single time he fought. Brilliant. On an international scale, absolutely love Inoue. Inoue right now is up there for me. Love watching him fight. Bam Rodriguez is another one, Jesse Rodriguez. Both of those guys are at lighter weights. Just for me, it's more about fighting style. Obviously, the Usyks of the world. How can you not love Alexander Usyk? But yeah, I'm more of I like personality as well as what happens in the ring. You know, I'm a sucker for a good press conference. I'm a sucker for a bit of shoving at the weigh-in. You know, so it's all part of the pantomime, and that's kind of where I'm at with it as well.
So that's very interesting that you your main interest is around the lower weights. Then,
look, I would say I shine light on the lower weights where the casual audience wouldn't.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm massively interested in the heavyweights, and that's where the sport's at now with Riyadh season and all the rest of it. But I would just as happily watch a super bantamweight or a bantamweight fight than I would a heavyweight or cruiserweight fight.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, Crawler's a great shout, and the other guy, what was it?
Tommy Coyle.
I remember him. I'd forgotten about him, but I do remember.
Yeah, he was always in great fights and just a really stand-up. He does a lot in his community and all the rest of it. Really stand-up guy. And
okay, so did you have a favorite division then?
Favorite division in boxing right now? It'd have to be 154, just with all the names that are in there right now. Terence Crawford. Virgil Ortiz, Jaron Ennis is going to join them very shortly. Boots, Madrimov, Boa, you know, all these guys in there right now. It's obviously heavyweight is always going to be there, but 154 is great right now.
So, how do you rate the heavyweight? I think the heavyweight division is always a fascinating one. Like right now, it's so hard to really. I don't like to compare eras necessarily, but how do you rate the heavyweight division right now?
Obviously, it's It's a great era for heavyweight boxing where we are now. I wasn't, privy enough to grow up. I missed the Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis kind of stuff that was going on Holyfield. So I can't give a qualified opinion, I guess, on what I think, comparing today to then. But I can see what we've got right now. We've got a hell of a lot of good heavyweights, and luckily we're seeing them actually matched up, which felt quite far away 2 or 3 years ago.
That's very interesting because so I grew up through that era, through the Tysons and the Holyfields and the Lewises, and I'm very aware that I have a bias towards that era because it was my formative years. So as someone who doesn't have that bias, when you pull up the old footage of those guys, you can be more impartial, and you can look at that and say, right, how do you think they stack up compared to Usyk, Fury, these guys now, Joshua?
Your Lewises and your Tysons and your Holy. It's interesting, isn't it? Because Tyson's 5'11", he's big, bulky, stocky guy. Lennox Lewis is a big, fully fledged heavyweight, but Holyfield's one of the best cruiserweights of all time as well. Whereas you got Anthony Joshua, big 6'6" guy, absolutely ripped to shreds. Fury 6'8", 6'9", or whatever it is. So I think Fury's style would be able to hang in there, just with him being so awkward and gangly and very tough as well. No doubt in his toughness getting up from all the heavy knockdowns in his career. Usyk's an interesting one because he's obviously a cruiserweight that's fighting at heavyweight, but he's so skilled that he doesn't even need the extra weight. Joshua, I think, would have struggled in that area. I think he's just too easy to hit ultimately. But again, I couldn't give a whether I think X would be Y, just because again I haven't. Obviously I've watched Lennox, I've watched his 2 defeats, I've watched the final fight with Vitali and so on and so forth. But I didn't. I've watched the rest of these guys' whole careers.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. That's a brilliant assessment. And those Lennox fight, I remember. I watched those live, and I can remember them like they were yesterday. And the shock. All right, okay. So I wonder, you might have a hot take here. If you could change one rule in the sport of boxing, what would it be?
Well, it's a good question. I saw that one. It's interesting because whenever we do the watch-alongs, and we did one this past Saturday for the Sonny Edwards card, and we'll do. Depending on the quality of the card, I guess this answers more of your question before. Like, depending on the quality of the card, it's a good card on Saturday. So we did 4 fights for that one.
Yeah, right.
For the Riyadh season cards, we'll do the full card mostly because they're all great fights. But if the fights aren't great, we'll just do the main event.
Yeah.
So with the and we're always talking about bad judging. That was what I was coming around to. There's always something about judging. and how you combat it, I don't know, because all I ever hear is, "I just put them in a room and get them to explain their card or whatever it is." But what's that really going to do? I'd like to see them experiment. I'd like to see them try 5 judges at one point. Maybe more of a case study. What does that do? I mean, might not work. It might just mean we get 5 bad scorecards rather than 3. I don't know, but something needs to be done. And I don't have the answer to what it is. Who am I to have the answer? But it's the boxers that Gavin Gwynn, for example, who for me he lost the fight on Saturday to Cameron Vong. He's 34 years old. He'd lost he'd lost his last fight by knockout. It was arguably his last chance. Eddie Hearn said he's going to get a rematch, but he won the fight. He lost on the cards. But again, his purse will be dictated now in the rematch by where if he'd have won and had done the rematch, he's definitely getting more of a percentage than now if he lost. So, okay, yeah, you get the rematch, great. But now you have to go through all of that again for less money. That's the difference for me. It's not just, he gets a rematch, so it's all everything's sunshine and rainbows now.
I agree.
It's completely different.
And that feeling where you see a fighter who's on the wrong end of a decision, this sort of empathy one feels for them after a 12-week camp, put everything on the line, and you feel that, justice has not been served. It's tough. It's really tough. And like you say, what is the solution? I don't know what the solution. How did you score Beterbiev Bivol?
Yeah, I scored it 115-113 to Bivol. I scored it to Bivol by 2 rounds. The rematch just got announced last night, which is great. Yeah. I think it's good for Beterbiev because he's 40 years old. I think it's good for him to get the rematch on straight away. The longer the time goes, the more it favours Bivol, in my opinion. Yeah. I just saw a bit. It was close. Don't get me wrong. I actually famously tweeted out after round 10 that on my card, Beterbiev needs a stoppage.
Yes,
but we're watching it on mute, and that's just how I had the fight. And it's easy to get caught up in the other guy's scorecards as well, which is easy to get caught up in the commentary when you're listening to the commentary live as well. You are swayed regardless of what anyone. If you're hearing, he's doing this, he's doing that. Of course, you're going to be swayed. So I watched it back, and I've scored it a couple of times exactly the same way.
Really?
Can't get away from that card. 115-113 to Bivol.
I've developed quite a strong stubbornness to commentary because I've heard it for so long, and I do tune. I gave Bivol the first 6 rounds, and I don't mind saying that publicly. I thought he won. I think I was 116, 112. I posted my card immediately.
Beterbiev came on in the latest part of the fight. He did, no doubt about that.
Bivol, what the problem is, Bivol. I think what's happened in boxing is we've had a generation of MMA fans who have sort of crossed over to boxing, and they all just want action and aggression. Who's coming forward? And I think that might have filtered into a little bit of judging mentality now, because everyone talks about he was the aggressor. Well, I don't care. If all you care about is aggression, Floyd Mayweather would have been beaten 6 times. So, it's an interesting rematch. They're doing it so quickly. It's very interesting. You say the age thing, doing it quickly. So 4 months between the fights. Favors.
That's unheard of, really, for that kind of a level of fight. But it makes complete sense from Team Beterbiev's point of view. Why would he give it another? There was talk of an interim fight for both in the middle of it, and I called it out as nonsense at the time. But and not only from Team Beterbiev's point of view, from the fans' point of view, if it goes another 12 months, Beterbiev's body's falling apart anyway. We know he's getting injured all the time, and he's probably got one last big night in him. If we're being completely honest, I think it's a great call by all involved to do it so soon.
You happy to make an early prediction for 2 months out?
Yeah, look, I think Bivol will win the rematch. I do. I picked Beterbiev to stop him in the first fight. I did. But having watched those 12 rounds, I'd be comfortable enough to say, and I think Bivol will be favourite going into the rematch as well. I think so, yeah. I think so.
So that's also brilliant that a lot of people think that when you feel strongly about a scorecard, so you scored it a few times, had the same scorecard, you'd pick the other guy, but you're still able to score.
Oh, yeah, I picked Beterbiev to stop him. Yeah, I did in round 10, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. So it's possible to have a prediction and still score it.
Of course.
So what about over your entire sort of, however, 17 years in following boxing, what's the best hot take and the worst cold take. So the time where you've just thought, I absolutely got that right, and you were proud of yourself, and also where you were like, I'm strong on this prediction, but got it totally wrong.
Oh God, I've had some horrible ones in my time. God, where will I start? Let me think of some great ones. I don't want to disrespect anybody either. Is the thing, because I never know who I'll talk to.
Right. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought David Haye was going to deal with Tony Bellew.
No, that wasn't even a question for me. Yeah,
right. Even in the rematch, I still.
Haye was walking through Bellew. Yeah. I forgot about that one.
I mean, that feels kind of wrong to say it with what we know now, but at the time I was like, yeah, I've got Haye here.
Yeah, I mean, even when Ricky came back against Simchenko, he'd been stopped by Paulie Malignaggi. Now, wow. Paulie Malignaggi, notoriously one of the weakest punchers that world champion boxers anyway in the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. I thought Ricky would walk through Simchenko and stop him, whereas obviously he got put out with a body shot on his back. These things happen. I'm trying to think of because I've had some terrible ones over the years, but none of them are, just because I make predictions on almost every big fight in any case. But just trying to think of some huge upsets.
You mentioned earlier Sonny Edwards this weekend, and there were very few.
I picked Sonny to win that.
Most people did, and a lot of people thought it would be, and it was a 50-50, or it was slight favourite.
Yeah, Sonny was slight favourite. Yeah, no, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? It's
with hindsight, all the signs were there that he put it out, and I watched the betting in that, and after I think he started a little bit odds on, and then in the first round he was already 6-1. It just
the first round was incredibly dominant. It was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you come back to
I'll definitely think of something.
What about a good one? What about a hot take where you've got it absolutely right against the grain? Against the grain,
I picked Ruiz to beat Joshua.
Nice.
When that happened, I've had a few. I don't. Jay Murphy, who hosts the podcast with me, he always picks on the prediction shows. He always goes against the grain. So he picked Dubois to knock out Joshua in a couple of rounds, and but yeah, he loves the outlandish ones. I'll pick with whoever I genuinely think will win on the time. That one sticks out. Ruiz to beat Joshua. Trying to think of any other big kind of upsets that have happened, because they don't happen too often.
It's easy to downplay that Ruiz pick because what we've seen since, but at the time, that was huge. It
was crazy.
American debut.
Joshua was undefeated, and he's knocking everybody out, and it was crazy.
Yeah, there was talk of like best of all time chat going around as well.
Oh yeah. There was everybody was high on. He wasn't right that night. I'll maintain that. I don't know what they've never really officially released what.
So I thought he looked when Dubois stopped him a few months ago. I thought Joshua looked the same in the announcements. I thought he looks like he looked. I texted my mates. I was like, he looks like he looked before the Ruiz fight. What's wrong with him?
Yeah,
his eyes were sort of glazing over.
Yeah, he tripped over on his way to the ring.
Over as well.
He didn't quite look himself, did he? But again, I'm sure maybe once the door closes, we'll maybe hear more, because Eddie Hearn alludes to it. Quite a bit as well about that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of any other major upsets. I've definitely had a couple, but that one is the number one that sticks out to me because I remember it really well.
Yeah, brilliant. And okay, so who do you think is the most overrated boxer, either active or historically?
Overrated. I think Tank is overrated currently. Gervonta Davis. Mm-hmm. No, I think he's very good. Don't get me wrong. And he's undefeated, and he's knocking everybody out. But a lot of the fights he's took, a la the Ryan Garcia fight, where Garcia was a corpse when he fought him. Mario Barrios was weight drained. He's current champion of the weight of 2 weights above Tank now. Actually, right. He drained him down to beat him. A lot of the matchups seem to be kind of favoured in his way, but he's from the Floyd Mayweather school. He's Floyd Mayweather's protege. Yeah. So Mayweather kind of drained Canelo a little bit when they fought and so on and so forth. So I'm not. He could go on to be a great, but he hasn't got the resume to do so yet. And a lot of his wins have been against people maybe who he's at the advantage when they're stood in the middle of the ring. And credit to him for that. I guess he's doing what he needs to do. But I want to see more from him. Put it that way.
That's a really interesting observation. Actually, it's the how they sort of can massage the details of the fight to favour them with the weight condition. And obviously, Conor Benn, Chris Eubank, if they make that next year, that's going to be a major one in terms of how they
Eubank was a walking zombie at the weight that they had that agreed at. Yeah, he was dead at the weight.
I really don't like seeing that. It's So what about who do you put on a pedestal? Who's the most underrated, either previously in or old eras or currently?
Underrated. It's a good question. I think Joe Calzaghe.
I was going to say that.
Underrated. I think at 47-0, he's another one who I loved watching when I first got into the sport. Yeah, I think his accomplishments definitely underrated. I actually think Andre Ward is a little bit underrated as well.
Brilliant.
Or underappreciated potentially rather than underrated, if you want to call it that. But those two I would say.
Brilliant answers. Couldn't agree more. I think Calzaghe, everyone throws the slap allegations at him. Yeah. And I think he had bad hands, didn't he? It's like Mayweather did as well. These guys can't do anything else. It's like, and if anything, I think that's an uptick for them that they adapted because of something they couldn't do anything about.
That's it. And Floyd was the same.
Yeah. I was a huge Calzaghe fan, absolutely. And I just wish Calzaghe had some of those marquee fights at the end of his career 5 years earlier.
I know. Hopkins and the rest of them, definitely.
So who do you have number one all-time at heavyweight?
Number one all-time. Again, I haven't watched enough of the, your Ali's, your Frazier's, your Foremans. To cast a massive opinion on that. So again, I can't give an informed answer on it. I guess, that I've seen compete anyway, Lennox Lewis. Yeah. That I've watched enough of his fights to form an opinion, But those guys, I know they're fighting 15-round fights every few months. It's completely different to.
Yeah. So, what about, I think you've answered this already, but any pro boxers you've met in real life that stand out?
I've met quite a few, to be fair. When I was over in Vegas, I was at Mayweather's gym. I was kindly met by Badu Jack, Bermain Stavern, not Roger Mayweather. One of the Floyd wasn't there, but one of the Mayweathers was there, and they were very hospitable people. I've met Kell Brook, Tony Bellew, all the Smith brothers, Kroll. I've met I used to go to the press conferences quite a bit when I was over in Liverpool. So I've met quite a few of them in real life. Yeah.
Nice, brilliant. Okay, so this is not a leading question from those names, but what is the worst piece of sportsmanship you've seen in a boxing ring?
In more recent times, one of the Durrell brothers fought, and one of his coaches cheap shotted the opponent. I think he got banned for life or something like that. He gave him a short left hook or something, which is bizarre. But obviously, the Mike Tyson Holyfield one has to stand out, doesn't it? That was pretty bad.
Yeah, I watched that live. It remains the most extraordinary thing to see that in real. The crazy thing about that fight is after Tyson bit him twice, they let the fight continue.
Oh, that's crazy! Absolutely insane.
Mills Lane had tried to kick him out. He's like, he's done, and the Nevada Commission guy said, "Oh, he can still fight. Let him go again."
Love it.
Extraordinary. So, what do you think is the most standout bad decision? We talked a few of them earlier, but the worst controversial decision you've seen?
There's been a few in recent years. Josh Taylor against Jack Catterall was horrendous, the first fight.
Yeah.
Earlier on this year, there was a shocker, O'Shaquie Foster against Hobson Conceição. That was for a world title in America. That was awful. Yeah. Manny Pacquiao and Tim Bradley, the first fight was shocking. Felt bad for Tim Bradley, actually. Even he didn't want to take the victory on that night. Yeah. They're three that stand out to me. I can't try to think of any more, but yeah, they're all really bad ones.
That second one, I can't even pronounce their names like you do, but I saw that. That was unbelievable.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah, Foster won the fight easily.
Yeah.
They rematched last month, and it was a close fight, which got given to Foster this time.
Right. I didn't know.
It was nowhere near as close as the first one that got given the other way.
Right. Yeah. So what do you do differently? Do you think you do anything differently when you're looking at a matchup and you're coming up with your previews, either your deep dives or your short form ones?
Not really. I just kind of lean on what I've watched over the years. To be honest with you, I'd like to think that I can see an angle if there's one there. I don't get everyone right, but by any stretch of the imagination, I just give my thoughts on it. And some people like to, I get questions a lot especially from subscribers in the US who want to know a little bit more about UK fights and especially like smaller ones, even like shows like last weekend though, that these guys haven't watched them. So again, I'll give my thoughts and my opinion. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just my thoughts on it. So yeah, I just go with what I've seen more than anything. I don't have any cutting edge analysis to it. I go off what I've seen off both fighters, and that's it.
You say that, but I think what you touched on earlier is a great one for people watching this to know to really focus on the whole weight drain thing. That who is.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
I think that's a massive, easy.
Like I'd have picked Conor Benn to knock out Chris Eubank in that first fight without question. Yeah, based on that.
Yeah, and it's. I think that whole period of that fight where you see the ones at the scale. Sometimes you used to see someone on the scales, and you're just like.
I can change picks. I'll change, and it's not a great thing to do, but you can be influenced based on what you see. I changed from Sonny Edwards to Galal Yafai about 3 hours before the fight, just based on things. It can happen. It really can.
I did not like. I'd gone with Sonny for that one, but I did not like his vibe at the weigh-in at all. I thought there was something.
No, it wasn't Sonny or Camp. Yeah. To be honest with you, it really wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite boxing quote from a fighter?
I like the one that Usyk said. The one I think you'd already put that on to me. But I like the Ali ones. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Yeah. There's other great ones that his mic skills were kind of unmatched. To be honest.
Go on. What's the Usyk one?
What's he saying? I'm going to be. I'm going to not let you breathe. What does he say?
Tyson, don't be afraid. I will not leave you alone.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, don't be afraid. I'll not leave you. Oh, I am Phil. That's another good Usyk one. Usyk's brilliant. His broken English makes him.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so what about best boxing movie, best boxing book that you can think of?
Rocky IV is my favorite boxing movie. That's iconic. Love it. Yeah. I wouldn't say I've read that many. I've read quite a few autobiography boxing of fighters. Darren Barker's was a really good read.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I read that a few years ago. I've read Carl Froch. I'm a big fan of Carl Froch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't really read too many kind of like. I would like to read like Tris Dixon and Andy Clark, I think, just released one. They're the type of things I read, but I haven't actually got around to it yet.
Teddy Atlas has got a good book from
Teddy Atlas is another guy.
His book's really good. Okay, apart from your own, what any podcasts that you will always listen to?
Yeah, I like the Fight Disciples.
Yeah.
Nick and Adam. I like their stuff. I actually went on one of their shows for the Fury Usyk fight, which was good fun. I like those guys. What other podcasts would I listen to? Wouldn't say I religiously listen to. I listen to other guys in the space. Guys from X and all the rest. Probably like hardcore boxing fans point of view. I used to listen to the Boxing Asylum, if anyone's heard of them. I haven't listened to them as much lately, but I see between spending so much time doing this and all the rest of it, actually finding time, and sometimes I guess you want downtime away from it as well. So I don't religiously listen to too many, but I'll try. I always like, especially for the big fights, I'll try and get other perspectives of what's going on.
I enjoy George Groves. He's got a good one.
Yeah, I like. Yeah, he's with Derek. Someone, is it?
Deck Taylor. Is it Deck
Taylor? Sorry, that's it. Yeah,
they got good rapport together. Okay, so if you can think of the best ring entrance you've seen in boxing, or the best sort of goosebump moment when the referee's giving final instructions and your heart's coming out your chest, any standout ones?
Yeah, I always loved Vladimir Klitschko's ring entrances, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I always thought that was, he always used to do great ones in Germany when he was fighting. Fever pitch moment when the Usyk Fury fight, the first one, it was kind of surreal when they was first time in 25 years, or first time in the 4-belt era, the undisputed heavyweight. That was quite surreal. I used to get it all the time. Any big fight, I would get the palpitations, but I think I'm mellowing down now, and especially as doing more. I used to sit there and watch them. More now, I'm kind of doing the YouTube stuff and all the rest of it. It's kind of all over the place a little bit more.
That Usyk Fury, I've been watching boxing for 25 years. That Usyk Fury, that was up there with anything I can remember.
Yes, it was brilliant.
All right, then. So what about, final question, if you were a pro boxer, would you have a go-to entrance tune for your ring walk?
Yeah, it would have to be, going back to Rocky IV, it'd have to be No Easy Way Out off Robert Tepper, is it? I think, who does it. Yeah, it's a great the montage training video for Rocky. Yeah, so that'd be a great entrance. I actually think Carl Froch walked out to it, and AJ has a couple of times.
AJ walked out to it and then got knocked out 3 minutes later in September.
Was he out to it against Dubois? Brilliant. Yeah, I have to change it.
Yeah. All right, Sam, that's brilliant. So, can you just tell everyone where's the best place to follow you on YouTube and on Twitter?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, but both handles are exactly the same. Just what you can see on the screen at SW Fight Hub on X. Try and keep up to date with news. Interact with everybody in and around boxing. I do a bit of mixed martial arts as well on there, but just anything, mostly boxing, in fairness. And SW Fight Hub YouTube. Yeah, it's just, as David alluded to before, short prediction videos, live watch-alongs, midweek podcast that we do just relating to fight previews and the latest news. We do that 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, so we'll be on for that later. That's it, really.
And it's every week you do at least.
Every week. Yeah, there's content flying out a lot of the days. There is.
Brilliant. All right, Sam, that was really good fun. Enjoyed that. So thanks very much.
Thanks for having me on, David. Me too.
All right, we'll do it again sometime.
Love to.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Cheers.